What was I talking about?
I have no. I was so afraid that we are going to do this sometime.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Patriot Pair podcast, where we present our views on the raging issues from geopolitics to culture and everything in between. So let's get into today's topic. So we're finally done with all of our pre-recorded footage and on to newer episodes and topics. So yay! So I recently came across this news article which got us into this topic.
I mean, we were going to do this episode anyway. It was already in the works, but this just sealed the deal and gave us more fuel for the fire.
We were basically thinking of it as an extension to our second episode, which was based on authoritarianism and lawfare. But this really got us, it gave us a new page. Most of you must already be knowing about it by now. The Union Power Minister has proposed
This new policy change, more so a new regulation that would limit the temperatures of any new ACs coming off the shelf right now. Meaning any new ACs coming down the production line will not be able to go below 20 degrees and above 28 degrees. Which means if you're going to buy an AC, let's say 2 years down the line, right, that AC will not be able to go below 20 degrees.
demand for ACs has grown. What their official statement is that this is to reduce the energy consumption and overall environmental impact because of said AC usage and electricity consumption.
Where the idea came was from copying the West blindly, especially the part of the West that is not doing so well right now by themselves.
Their own energy consumption and environmental policies are coming back to bite them in the behind. So who exactly are we trying to copy here? This is very clear that they're blindly copying the European countries, which is very obvious in just the phrasing that they have used, which is, by the way, the cooling down to 20 degrees Celsius and heating up to 28 degrees Celsius. Tell me one thing. When in the history of ever have Indian households ever used an AC to heat up
to 28
degrees Celsius? That has never happened. That will never happen because the only
I
time
mean, will never happen according to the climate change. Who knows when?
Indian households have never used an AC to heat up to or above 28 degrees Celsius. So
I mean, ACs, number one, are not used to heat up. They have air conditioners to actually condition. We have air conditioners just to cool down.
yeah, and that's my whole point. The phrasing itself is giving away the plot because they are so blind in the copying front that they're absolutely even picking up the whole sentence and saying it without applying their two brain cells about it.
Or hear me out, conspiracy theory here. It's written by AI. There is chat GPT ways of reducing power consumption. Just somebody like, oh, that's a smart thing.
So the justification as per the Power and Housing Ministry officials is that air conditioners use about 50 gigawatts of energy, and which is about 20% of our overall consumption in India, which agreed is a lot.
I have an issue regarding that being a problem in itself. We are on the equator. India comes along the line of equator.
Yes.
Right. Obviously, our power consumption, most of it goes into conditioning the air.
We have a lot of
air to condition. We have a lot of hot. We have a lot of heat to
and humidity.
Yes. Why would we not be using a bulk of our power to cool down? The same countries that they like to copy, the statement as it reflects that they're trying to copy European countries. Those same countries use a whole bunch of their power to heat up.
Exactly. See, that's the biggest problem because they are trying to basically cherry pick certain policies of theirs to apply to our situation because they have this regulation of not heating up above 28 degrees centigrade. Firstly, 28 is a comfortable temperature. Toasty temperature for chilly countries. Especially if you're heating up to 28 is a comfortable temperature. Meanwhile, if you're cooling to 28 is very different. than heating up to 28.
And that's another factor. It's about the appliance. If when you try to cool down to 28 or when you try to heat up to 28, it's the appliance trying its best to reach that temperature. If your native temperature where you're living is 28, if your native temperature is 27, 25, 20, you're living comfortably. And if it's colder there, all you have to do is wear more clothes. If it's hotter, it's much more
It's a
uncomfortable.
harder situation to deal with,
Especially if
overall.
it's humid. You know.
Exactly. My bigger problem is they're basically giving the plot away in just the phrasing of saying cooling down to 20 and heating up to 28 degrees centigrade, because we're not the sort of country that heats up to 28.
We're not the sort of country that heats up to anything. It's like,
At least we don't use air conditioners to heat up. We have heaters for that.
now another factor in this whole statement that they released, it's not just the residential units of the ACs that consume that 20% of energy.
Exactly.
It's not, the 50 gigawatts is not coming from household buildings, it's not coming from residential areas, it's coming from malls, it's coming from commercial areas, it's coming from cooling plants. Essentially giant ACs.
Yes. Different packaging, same product. Basically, as always, the government is trying to choose the easy way than the actually right or even effective manner. Because tell me this, how easy is it to put two ACs for the people who will be able to afford it, and once the 20 degrees
Yes.
centigrade crackdown happens, for the people who are able to afford it, well, they'll buy two ACs. Well, where are you then with the whole energy consumption situation then?
Very valid
Two
point.
ACs.
Very valid point. And in fact, I'll give an even easier solution that I know people will do this. How are you going to make sure that there's a limiter on the AC?
Exactly. There has to
And
be some software.
I don't know what they do. To me, let's say it's rocket science, right? But there's a component that limits your AC's capacity. It's not like they're suddenly going to start making ACs that just don't go down.
Exactly. They're basically gonna amend the existing machines.
Right. Are they going to just disappear all the technicians who put the limiters there? There are technicians. Essentially, the point is there are technicians. And they can, the same way you can put in the limitation is the same way you can take out the limitation. What are they going to do then? Home audits? Check on residential ACs?
Yeah, see if people are actually. Basically, you made a basic commodity.
What will be the criteria? Hey, you look very comfortable.
Why are you making a basic commodity illegal? A commodity for which people have already paid a huge amount of tax.
Let's say it's not even illegal, it's just against the regulation.
No,
Right.
but that's how it happens, you know. It's also against regulation to cut down a tree in your yard.
Yep.
That's how it happens. One step after the other, and they're well inside your yard.
Now, this being an already quite an invasive regulation, they're planning to go even further. They're planning to move to also regulate the temperatures of vehicles, the temperatures
Exactly.
of ACs in vehicles. Just like that, people are going to start complaining cars don't have good ACs anymore, and they're going to go to a mechanic, get it fixed.
Exactly.
Just like cars don't have good enough lighting, and I am just so done with everybody getting, I don't know, the blinding lights.
The blinding lights that make very much sure that an accident is basically impending.
I am so done being the deer in the headlights. Stop with the headlights.
And while we're on the whole government overreach and crackdown situation, they'll get you for the seatbelt or the helmet. But situations that can actually actively cause an accident, cause harm to another person's life.
But they won't regulate there. They won't regulate where it makes sense. They will regulate where they think they will make the most amount of money. Because when you're not wearing the seatbelt or when you're not.
Or the easiest way to show that they're doing something.
Yes, it's more for show.
Yes, for example, again coming back to this whole air conditioner situation, how effective do you think it's actually gonna be? It's the easiest freaking thing for them to simply say they're doing this big policy change and we're making such a grand move, and even on this they have already gotten some appreciative accolade from some LG.
Of course, LG will say that.
For saying basically what the spokesperson said was, it's so good that India is making such a great move akin to a lot of European countries
Failed
towards
states.
energy conservation and environmental conservation, etc., etc. Well, their situation sucks already with the countries.
Their countries are essentially failed states, at least in my view. Especially if we're talking about, let's say, Germany. They have a lot of problems going on. They had their energy situation under control for a little bit of time, but right now I don't know what's going on with them. And us trying to copy from them just does not make any sense.
Exactly. My point again comes back to empty gestures, which make it seem as if they're actually doing something. Meanwhile, what they're doing is making the lives of the common man harder.
And who are you trying to appease? Greta Thunberg, I don't know, Thunberg. Even she's not taking to her, how dare you, on the climate change stuff. Why are we going on?
And it's not even about the climate change thing. Here, they're actually talking about energy conservation and
climate change
electricity.
is going to be the banner they put it under.
Exactly.
Climate change is an excuse here for them not putting up the infrastructure or upgrading the infrastructure to be good enough to handle that energy need. On one side, they want all of India to be tier 1 cities, right? To be able to have all those facilities, to have metros. If you have all those facilities and if every city is a metropolitan city, they're going to have energy consumption needs. You need infrastructure and you need to upgrade it anyway.
See, again, they're using the easy way out, which is the easiest thing to flout. You can either get multiple air conditioners, which again beat the whole electricity thing, or you can get whatever they've fixed, unfixed, and keep using your air conditioner as you anyway please.
Or
all they're doing is making an empty statement which can easily be worked around. Geysers also use a lot of electricity. When do we reach the point like maybe California where they have now also
brownouts?
Exactly.
They have brownouts and they already have limitations on how much temperature you can set on their thermostat.
Exactly.
Right. They have to heat up, just like in the article and stuff.
Heat up to 28.
And they can only heat up to a certain temperature. They can only use a certain amount of electricity, no matter if they're paying for it, no matter how much tax they're paying. And I don't want to get to that point. I'm not saying we're immediately moving towards authoritarianism. All I'm saying is these are the small steps where it just shows that they think of us as the sheep people, right?
Yes.
We need to be herded. We need to be taught and told what to do, how to live our own lives, what temperature to set my own freaking AC at.
Which again, I have paid for.
Pay taxes on.
No, that's what I mean. Don't take my extra tax on a commodity you already have labeled as a luxury and are taking extra taxes on, and then use that same tax to restrict the way I use that device. Don't come at me with my own money.
And you know what? I'll take that deal. How about you wanna give me a neutered AC, right? You want to give me a machine essentially that does not do its job well. Cool, give me a tax break on it. So you can either have the 28% tax on the ACs or you can put in that regulation. I mean, I am powerless to do anything against it because what am I going to do?
We can just talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it.
Obviously, because that's our job as citizens of this country.
And I'm not saying like talk about it in the radio protest against the AC stuff. No, but it needs to be said at least. It doesn't need...
Civil conversation is necessary about certain things. Civil conversation is necessary about the goings on in society.
We need to stop talking about pop culture and who married who and who got lip work done and who got behind work done and whatnot. We need to talk more about what's actually happening in the world. That's the conversation. That's the kind of conversation we need to have with our kids. Exactly. We need to have with our parents, with our teachers, and that's how
with our friends.
Yes, and that's how you elevate the standard of a whole society.
Another thing they have basically said is all of this whole situation, the crackdown and everything, that again is happening on the common man, the home installed ACs.
Not the malls.
Not the malls, not the offices, not any cooling plants, etc. Because hey, they're apparently useful, but your comfort out of a product that you yourself have purchased, that isn't.
No, they're the elites.
And already after having paid 28% GST on an air conditioner, their whole logic is this crackdown will essentially save them from spending around 7.8 trillion rupees, which is around $88 billion, on expanding the power grid and building more power plants.
That's what you took the money for.
Exactly. The whole point of taking that tax amount is to make sure you can build those
the infrastructure. That is one of the core jobs, to build infrastructure. Roads, power plants, power lines, all that stuff is the core job, and providing security from threats, foreign and domestic. That's the job of the government. Everything else, in my opinion, is just baloney. It's just them
Yes.
trying to do just
Skirting around there, exactly. What are you gonna do with that money specifically if you are charging an extra amount on the GST already? 28% is a high tax bracket for having labeled the air conditioner a luxury item.
product. And in this heat, it's not a luxury item, it's a necessary item.
No, I am saying, sure, call it a luxury item. And hey, it's a good marker for your country's economy if 20% of your electricity is being consumed by air conditioning units, because that shows your economy is doing good, because that many people are able to afford an air conditioner
That means-
in spite of your taxes.
That means 20% of your country's electricity supply is going towards luxury products, right? So your country is doing pretty good. Imagine if this same thing was happening in China, and just see how much they would flaunt this.
The thing is, they are like, hey, we're not able to keep up with that demand, so
How about we reduce the demand instead of actually
increasing the supply. Basic economics concept, supply and demand. Just keep up with it. I mean, you're a country. Don't try and curtail your own citizens' access to their bought product. Don't try and minimize their problems. Don't try and make it an issue where you're like, suffer.
Don't try to hurt
Just
the
don't-
people.
Yeah, don't have them, the citizens, be like, we've paid so much money, but okay, we have to suffer for a bit for our country to be fine, cool, then we'll suffer in silence, I guess. Because who are you to judge what someone's household situation is? You cannot make a call on what the minimum or maximum temperature should be. You do not know what a person's situations are or what their choices are.
People have different jobs. Okay, let's say somebody's working real hard in the sun. They come back home and they want to crack down their AC to 16 or 18. It's their right to do so. They bought it, they paid for it, they paid tax on it, and they're continuing to pay the electricity bill.
They literally earned the right to use their device the way they want to.
Where I am okay with curtailing rights, and I'm actually not okay with curtailing rights anywhere, but where I am okay with perhaps entertaining the idea is when your rights might encroach upon the rights of others. For example, when you're on the road, driving is not your absolute right in the sense that you're not allowed to drive.
Yeah, you can't just willy-nilly do whatever on the road.
You can't drive on somebody else, you can't hit somebody with your vehicle. All of that is not just illegal, obviously that is all illegal, but that encroaches on somebody else's right. How is me using my own AC inside my house encroaching on anybody's rights? It's like me having food takes food away from somebody else. If I bought the food, I've earned the food and bought it, I'm entitled to it.
You might make an argument for, the eat the rich sort of mindset. Yeah, this is not affecting those people. As I said, the people who can afford it, for freaking sake, if I want to put 4 ACs in this room, I'll put 4 ACs in this room. The problem is not the people who can afford it. They'll just find a skirt around. The problem is the guy who's worked hard to supply that one air conditioner for his family. You're telling him he can't even bask in the comforts
Enjoy
that it should
that fully.
provide. That it should provide. That what he bought is not what he will get.
Argument regarding the person who worked hard to get that one AC, I understand. I'm saying even the one who has 4. Why should not they be allowed to enjoy anything that they have, that they bought, that they earned?
Yes.
Why should they not be allowed to use their resources to the fullest?
No, I just meant basically they can at least go by 4 if they want that level of cooling. If that's the baseline, they can supply that in whatever means necessary.
What I mean essentially is,
Yeah,
it is
exactly.
not of the government to take away from us in the first place.
Whoever the person may be.
We already bought it. We already own it. It is now ours. It is the concept of private property, and it is essentially an encroachment on the concept of private property itself. I know it might not make sense absolutely, since you haven't bought the ACs in the production line yet, but you're taking away the right to buy an intact thing. Certainly the government says that smartphones are very dangerous, and we will make sure that nobody under the age of 27 shall be able to buy a smartphone. The government certainly takes away your liberty, your right to purchase something that is widely available.
And you're actually capable of doing so. You have the money.
In no way is that wrong of you to want that thing. The first solution should not be, if you're not able to provide the resources for your people, how about we take away the demand? How about we take away the possibility of the demand?
Exactly.
The first solution should not be to simply
curtail the access of people. That's not the solution.
Especially
That's
when
a-
it's your core job to provide that
That's a-
specific infrastructure.
That's the same logic as we legally have a right to purchase guns, but at the same time, a lot of people essentially are not able to because there are so many hoops to jump through.
And so much cost associated with those.
Yes,
hoops.
and meanwhile, obviously, having an unregistered firearm is illegal. How many illegal guns exist in India?
I mean,
right now?
illegals also have a lot of guns, but illegal guns, yes.
A whole bunch of them. So
And there is no way to actually know the number because they're illegal. Nobody
that's
keeps
the
track
whole
of them.
point. Restricting something does not ensure that that problem will not happen at all. So same thing with the AC situation.
Another example in this, which will be another episode, I suppose. The banning of alcohol, the liquor bans. All that does is create a new cottage industry of black marketing the same thing
Exactly.
at a higher cost. And now worse off people are making money. People willing to be criminals.
Exactly.
Before the bans, in any place, before the bans, what was happening was people who wanted to be businessmen, who were okay with getting into an industry that is not the most savory,
Yes.
were making money. And maybe some people got more drunk than they should be. Those same people are still getting drunk.
Yes.
Only off of more expensive liquors bought by illegal means, and that money is going towards gangs.
That also reminds me of another government regulation of that sort, which ensures that no liquor store can be built within 500 meters of any national or state highways to reduce the effects of drunk
driving, I
driving.
suppose.
A guy who's gonna drunk drive, I mean, really will
Just drive 600 meters.
look back to the time of COVID when people were
Literally drank sanitizers.
just for the. So you really think they won't drive a few
Which
extra 100 meters?
There was this government when some state started delivering liquor to houses, right?
Yeah.
Because people were just
No, I remember still, even when the lockdowns were finally removed, there were the longest lines in front of liquor stores.
two kinds of petrols, one for people, one for cars. These things don't stop.
Government regulation and government lockdowns or crackdowns in this situation only create roundabouts for illegal means of doing so. If there is no way of actually fixing said situation, for example, for ACs, if we are not capable of funds apparently to build that infrastructure, that we are able to provide that level of electricity, how are we gonna crack down on roundabout ways to access?
Skirting the regulation. It's not law, it's not going to be law, it's going to be a regulation, but
Yeah.
people skirting the regulation. Okay, maybe you will be able to keep the electricity demand under the bar of electricity supply that you have. For how long though?
Exactly.
At some point, you are going to have to upgrade your infrastructure. How about you just
Do
do
it.
that instead of getting more?
Yeah, don't waste taxpayer money on a side project and then get back to doing what you actually were supposed to do.
Also a
Well, you're
side
just
project-
wasting it in two places now.
Also, a side project that actively works against the people and
Exactly.
against the system that you need to build, against the infrastructure that you need to build.
If your side project is based off of, hey, maybe, let's cede a bit of the rights of our citizens who have paid for all of this with their taxes, don't.
You know what they're doing essentially? They're using the company time to figure out ways of how to do their job less.
Yes.
They're using the company time to figure out how to scam the company. That's what it is.
Exactly.
And I don't like it.
Obviously not. Is our taxes paying for it, and it's really hot out here and humid?
We really don't like this because it's hot out here and it's humid and we paid for it. And we're still paying the electricity bill. So
Yeah, it's not free.
it's not free. I would like to get what I paid for.
This is not a give me that. This is a I paid for it, I bought it, I own its freaking everything. Let me use it.
Let me have the thing I paid for. Yes, I own this, but stop regulating more stuff, please.
More like, how about just don't?
How about just don't? Stop with the regulations. You don't need to do that. Just
There's already too many of regulations overall in the Indian subcontinent. Let's just stop, please.
this regulation, 0 out of 10 stars. No stars at all.
Would
No
not
like.
recommend.
Thumbs down.
Would not recommend.
Would not recommend.
Well,
Not even to an enemy. Not even to people I don't know. Not even to commies. Actually, maybe to commies. I don't like commies.
Yeah, they want that sort of stuff, so enjoy maybe. Thank you for tuning in for so long. Do tell us in the comments your views about this AC situation. What do you feel? Is it actually useful? Do you see it turning to a fruitful end, or are your views more aligned to what we think about it, where we know it's gonna find a skirt around and finally people will just be using it the way they're supposed
If
to,
you
and
think,
electricity use will hover around the same level anyway.
if you agree with us, tell us in the comments. If you don't agree with us, tell us in the comments. If you want to say something absolutely unrelated, please tell us in the comments. We like comments.
Thank you very much for joining in for today's episode. Stay tuned for the next one. We'll be trying to upload it every Tuesday now, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see you next time.